A guide for how life should be now, or a guide on how to get back to a working society after a collapse. We don't know why or who built the Guidestones. All we know is the inscriptions on them. Follow me down the rabbit hole about the Georgia Guidestones. Hi, guys, and welcome back to The Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Dani, and today we're talking about the Georgia Guidestones. So, the Georgia Guidestones have been nicknamed America's Stonehenge, just because, the oddness of them. The construction started in June of 1979 and lasted about 9 months in Elberton County, Georgia. Which calls itself the granite capital of the world. There is a lot of granite that comes out of the state of Georgia, so it makes sense that they would call themselves the granite capital of the world. In June of 1979, a man walks into the Elberton Granite Finishing Company and talks to the owner, Joe Finley, and says, "Hey man, I want to build this monument out of granite. Can you do it?" He claimed to be an architect from Atlanta, and he wants to build this thing. This seemed a little weird, obviously, to Joe Finley, who was like, most of my clients don't just show up. They make appointments, they call over the phone. It's just a weird place for people to just be showing up, asking to see granite and to have this monument made, right? And he says, "Okay, dude, who are you?" And this guy says, "My name is Robert C. Christian." Is a pseudonym, and he says that he names himself that due to his Christian values, his Christian beliefs. But he's a nice dressed man. He doesn't look raggedy, he doesn't look bad. He just looks like a regular guy here to build this crazy monument. And then Joe was like, "All right, cool. Yeah, whatever, we can build this monument for you if you would like, but we need money." And R.C. Christian was like, "All right, cool, how much money?" Well, of course, Joe was like, "Well, what are you looking to build?" And then R.C. Christian shows him, or describes this monument to him, how he wants 4 large slabs of granite that go upright, and there should be about 6.5 feet wide and over 16 feet tall, kind of looking like an X. In the center would be like a 16-foot pillar, and then you want a good slab of granite right on top to kind of connect them all at the top a little bit, sitting on top of all those upright positions, and altogether it'd be about 20 feet high, and he just wants giant slabs of granite. Joe Finley's like, "All right, cool, dude, that's weird, but whatever." So it's gonna be a lot because of how big these granite slabs are. He quoted him a few $100,000 today. Of course, nobody knows the exact amount, so a few $100,000 is as close as we could get. But of course, no monument of this size had been quarried out of Elberton, so that price would kind of vary based on, I don't know if they could even get the granite out of the quarry. They did end up actually getting the granite from Pyramid Quarry, and it's made out of pyramid blue granite, in case you're curious about the granite that used. And so, yeah, Joe Finley was like, "Okay, cool, here's how much it's gonna be." Christian didn't even bat an eye. He was like, "Cool, a few $100,000, not a big deal. Let's freaking do it." So then he goes to the bank and he says, "Hey, bank." He talked to the president of the Granite City Bank and said his name was Wyatt C. Martin. And Martin and Finley, they're both very important people here. And he gives Martin these blueprints and was like, "Hey, I'm going to build this thing. I'm going to have Joe Finley come and build this. So I need to get the money together and send it to you so we can pay these contractors, these granite companies, to come and build my thing." However, Martin was like, "Okay, but I do need some sort of identification because like I have to be able to verify your identity. I can't just like help you with this giant project with this amount of money with no identity. And that's when Christian made Martin sign an NDA and was like, I will tell you my identity. You don't tell anybody. You just like keep it between you and me, bro. And he honestly, like, Martin's dead now, took it to the grave with him. Never told anybody. I honestly think that Martin knowing Christian's true identity kind of helped Christian to trust Martin a little bit more, right? So he decided that he wanted Martin to kind of act as a liaison on the project for him, which is actually kind of strange because he wasn't trying to be like avoided or like wasn't avoiding people or avoiding being seen. He just was like, okay, Martin, I would like you to work on as a liaison on this project. As well, I would like you to destroy all documentation for the project after it's done. I want nothing left. I don't want no trace of this construction besides obviously the monument. I don't want any of it. Destroy everything. And Martin followed through because, I don't know, he's a cool guy. Martin helped Christian come up with a way how he could wire money from a bunch of different places, a bunch of different banks all around the country. So that way the grand total was really actually hard to trace. And remember, this is like the 80s. 79 and 80, because it took about 9 months to complete. They completed it in March of 1980. So, the grand total is going to be really hard to trace because he was wiring it from so many different banks on purpose, right? He didn't want people to know. So then we kind of get into the question, like, why did he choose Elberton? Like, why there? It doesn't make any sense. And at first he didn't really want it there, but then somebody had told him, trying to convince him to keep it in Elberton. They told him that Elberton was called the center of the world by native Cherokee tribes, and obviously known for the granite, so he could get his granite slabs there. However, like at first he was like, give me the granite slabs and we'll take them somewhere else. I'm sure, I don't know, this is just me talking, but I'm sure at one point somebody was like, we don't want to transfer or take this granite anywhere else, so transport the granite. So let's just convince him to leave it here in the county, so it's a little easier for us to build this thing. Because these are huge granite slabs. I'm talking like 28 tons each, not one for each of them. Georgia's also known for, he said a mild climate would preserve the monument. I think Georgia's not a mild climate, but that's just my personal opinion. I think it's hot and humid there, but whatever. He thought it was a mild enough climate to keep the monument preserved. And obviously it's working, because I went to the monument very recently and it's still there and it looks great. I don't know. Maybe it's granite and doesn't wear out as fast. Also, he said something about how his great-grandmother had resided in Georgia, and that's why he picked Georgia as the state. And he wanted an isolated place. This is kind of weird. He wanted an isolated place away from tourist attractions. And let me tell you, where this is located, it's like in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking 2 hours outside of downtown Atlanta, 109 miles from the heart of Atlanta. Like, it's just out there, and we drove out there. There's still nothing there. I mean, we made a cool day of it. You know, we went to a brewery that day too, but enough about my trip to the Guidestones. I really had a good time. It doesn't matter. All I'm saying is he picked a place like he wanted with, very little tourist attractions. What was really important for Christian is that the place where he put his monument had to be able to see the summer and winter sunsets and sunrises. So Finley, knowing lots of people in the county, was like, hey, I got this friend. His name is Wyatt Molinex, and he has a ranch, and he's willing to sell you 5 acres of his ranch for your monument. Conveniently, this land was the highest point in Elberton, so he could see everything that he wanted from this point. But after he bought the land from Molinex, he had him deed it to the county. And Christian was later quoted saying, like, the county was probably, quote, the most lasting organization in our whole country, unquote. And a lot of people think this is really ominous. Like, this is a really weird thing to say. And this is kind of where the conspiracy theories start going. Because, like, first of all, who is R.C. Christian? Like, why is he building this? He just told everybody that he was, he represented a group of loyal Americans who believed in God and wanted to build a monument to future generations and wanted to remain anonymous. That's it. That's all we know about R.C. Christian. And then he goes on to say that the county was probably, quote, the most lasting organization in our whole country. I know I've said the quote twice, but I think it's really important because something weird is happening there. And a lot of people think that this, quote unquote, group of loyal Americans who believe in God is, maybe the New World Order. Who knows? I'm just throwing out information here. Also, later, he had the ownership of the actual Guidestones also transferred to Elbert County. So he didn't own the land and he didn't own the Guidestones any longer. Everything about this now belonged to the county. I mentioned that Joseph Finley knew a lot of people in the county. Well, he was actually part of the local Shriners Club, which is like a Freemasons club, I guess. So they were all Freemasons and they belonged to this Shriners Club. And so a lot of the people that he hired were also from the Shriners Club. And honestly, like, I don't think it makes a big... And also the podcast I listened to had a good point as well. It might not make a big difference, or it might just be a coincidence, because a lot of Freemasons do work in the construction industry, and he works with these guys all the time, so he knows, like, Wayne, or I think I've been saying Wayne this whole time. His name is Wyatt Molinex, the guy that sold the 5 acres to Christian. Excuse my miss-up earlier. He was part of the Freemasons in the county. The guy that laid the concrete, all these different people that Joe, kind of hired to help him with this project. They were just all part of this club together, and they also are all in the same county together. So I'm sure, like, small county, small town community, and they're Freemasons together. It just, kind of worked out that way.
Did you know that over 40% of Americans have a hard time swallowing pills? So when it's time to take your vitamins, large capsules and pills are out of the question. We know that gummy vitamins exist, but they're full of sugar, they get stuck in your teeth, and they only contain a fraction of the nutrients you need. Luckily, Easy Melts has discovered the ultimate vitamin sweet spot. Vitamins that melt in your mouth, taste like a treat, and are packed with nutrients ready for absorption, all without an ounce of sugar. For a limited time, Easy Melts is giving listeners a free 3-month supply of vitamin D3 with their first purchase. To claim your free D3 vitamins, visit try.easymelts.com/spring24. That's try.melts.com/spring24. Say goodbye to the old way of taking your vitamins and say hello to the easy way. Menopausal and perimenopausal women, listen up. It's time to take control of your health and comfort, and Winona is here to help. Winona is a telemedicine company for menopause care who believes that your symptoms are real, important, and deserve to be taken seriously. And for many women, this starts with hormone replacement therapy. Winona's HRT is made with plant-based, bioidentical hormones rather than synthetic ones, so it better aligns with your body to offer relief from hot flashes, weight gain, and other uncomfortable symptoms. 80% of women who use Winona find relief within just 90 days. So, what are you waiting for? Get started today. Visit buywinona.com today to start your free visit. With free shipping and the ability to pause or cancel at any time, your path to wellness has zero obligations. Use code SPRING24 at buywinona.com for 25% off your first treatment plan. That's BYWINONA.com for 25% off. Winona. Menopause care made easy.
So let's talk about these stones. So there is a plaque near the Guidestones that kind of explains all like the physical data. And since I was just there and I took a picture of it, I'm going to read to you straight from this plaque that's on the ground, the physical data. So number 1, overall height is 19 feet 3 inches. Number 2, total weight is 237,746 pounds. The 4 major stones are 16 feet 4 inches high, each weighing an average of 42,437 pounds. The center stone is 16 feet 4 inches high as well, and it weighs 20,957 pounds. The capstone that's right on top of all of these stones that are sticking up, there's a capstone on top, and that is 9 feet 8 inches long, 6 feet 6 inches wide, 1 foot 7 inches thick, and weighs 24,832 pounds. Number 6, support stones, the bases, are 7 feet 4 inches long, 2 feet wide, 1 foot 4 inches thick, each weighing an average of 4,875 pounds. The other support stone, which also says it's a base, is 4 feet 2.5 inches long, 4 feet 2 inches wide, and 7 inches thick, and weighs about 2,707 pounds. And then it says it's about 951 cubic feet of granite. Wow, that's a lot of granite. And these slabs are huge, guys. They're not messing around. And number 9, the last physical data point, is granite quarried from pyramid quarries located 3 miles west of Elberton, Georgia. So that's the physical data that's posted on the plaque. But then there's also like the astronomical features. So number 1, the channel through stone indicates celestial pole. Number 2, horizontal slot indicates annual travel of sun. Number 3, sunbeam through capstone marks noontime throughout the year. So those are really important pieces, because if you remember back to the New World Order episode, and I was telling you how this all lines up to help with the calendar. So if the whole world, like all of society, collapsed and we need a guide, so to say, back to how we are now, we need a calendar, we need to start figuring out time and start getting all that back. Well, here's a guide stone that will tell you noon every single day. It'll tell you the winter and summer solstices looking through these holes. All these things they're so specific. They brought in engineers and they brought in experts from the University of Georgia to make sure that they drilled all the holes precisely right, that they didn't get anything wrong. To Joe Finley's credit, he followed the instructions exactly. And actually, after Christian got like all the money situated with the bank, he went back to Elberton Granite Finishing Company and he gave Finley this like shoebox, and it had all the papers, like super detailed instructions, and it had this little like wooden replica of what this monument should look like. And I mean, Finley did a fantastic job. Okay, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of this conspiracy theory, right? The inscriptions on the Guidestones. So Christian was very specific that he wanted 8 different languages of these 10 commandments, let's call it, written on these Guidestones. And these languages were Arabic, Chinese, English, Hebrew, Hindi, Russian, Spanish, and Swahili. As well, the capstone has an inscription on it in 4 different languages, which are all like ancient languages. Excuse me if I mess this up. It's Babylonian cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphics, Sanskrit, and classical Greek. So these like ancient languages inscribe around the top of the capstone, and that inscription says, "Let these be guidestones to an age of reason." And then the 10 commandments, again, okay, we can get into the New World Order connections there, but I'll let you make your own connections. The 10 commandments are, number one, and we went over this one, we went over a couple of these in our New World Order episode, but I'll just go over all of them for you. Number one, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Number two, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Number three, unite humanity with a living new language. Number four, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Number five, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Number six, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Number seven, avoid petty laws and useless officials. Number eight, balance personal rights with social duties. Number nine, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. And number 10, be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. So, there's so many New World Order ties here. We talked about it in the New World episode. So you have the 500 million, which right now we have almost 7 billion people in the world. So let's just like kill off most of the world. So you only have 500 million people. As well, there's a couple different things about, like reproduction. You have the guide reproduction wisely with improving fitness and diversity. And you also have prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. So, I don't know. And there's a couple things about the laws. You have, the protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts, avoid petty laws, make sure, you're ruling internally and you settle external disputes in the world. And then you have, the living new language, which I did talk about. I didn't talk about this specific, commandment in the New World Order episode, but it ties directly because they want one world, right? One language. I said that several times. So, and these guidestones are so big and so beautiful, and everything is done so meticulously. One of the things I think is kind of strange about this plaque I was telling you about earlier is there's a time capsule, and the time capsule says words about be opened on, or this was buried on blank, to be opened on blank. So it doesn't have a date that the time capsule was buried. It also doesn't have a date to open the time capsule. But this is kind of weird because Finley and so his workers, nobody saw any moved earth. Nobody saw anywhere where a time capsule could have been buried. There was nothing dug up, nothing there. Apparently, there's no time capsule under this plaque that says there's a time capsule underneath it. So that's odd, right? Did they just decide not to bury a time capsule and forgot to tell them, hey, don't put that part? Another thing that I think is kind of odd, because they were so specific about everything. RC Christian had everything written out so nicely, and everything is spelled perfectly. There's nothing wrong. It's beautiful, right? But on this plaque, they attribute the stones or the monument to RC Christian. It says, quote, RC Christian, a pseudonym. But pseudonym is spelled with an N at the end instead of an M. So could this have been a spelling error? That, it's just odd. It's just an odd thing that happened. I don't know. I thought I should mention it because I don't know. I couldn't put all the pieces together with that one, but maybe one of you can, and it's helpful. So the monument was revealed as finished on March 22nd, 1980. It took about, like I said, 9 months to complete. The district representative, Doug Varnard, gave a brief speech about it when the monument was finally revealed. And I mean, there was a decent turnout. There was about 400 locals, Finley and the crew that helped to build it. Martin, of course. An Atlanta camera crew came, and some curious, like, out-of-towners. Just some people that had heard about this was like, what the heck is this thing about? However, Christian did not show up, nor did any of his loyal Americans that believe in God, his group, right? Although Martin did receive a letter stating that the group had disbanded, that they had, like, completed their mission and they've gone their separate ways now. But I don't know, nobody from this group of loyal Americans showed up to see this monument be revealed and see the final product. It was just, there it was completed. Doug Varnard gave, like, a brief speech, like I said. He pretty much said, like, the Guidestones were a warning to America to preserve its natural resources. But honestly, like, he couldn't think of much to say. What do you say about something like this? What do you say about these inscriptions? How do you, like, present this to your county? You're like, hey, here's this thing. So if the world ends or something catastrophic happens, like, we have these, I don't know, these stones to guide us back. I don't know. There are so many weird things about these Guidestones. I mean, yes, they're at the highest point of Elberton County, but it's not, like, that high. It's like a small hill. So, I mean, I'm in Colorado, so I have mountains here. So maybe that is a high point in the county, and I just don't recognize it. But I'm going to post some of my pictures from my trip to the Guidestones here. Please make your own connections or debunk what I just presented to you. But America's Stonehenge, the Georgia Guidestones, why were they built? Nobody knows. Who is R.C. Christian? Well, Martin's dead now, so we're never gonna know. All right, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Georgia Guidestones. Thank you so much for listening, and stay skeptical, my friends. I will see you next week. If you like the show, please leave us a rating and review wherever you are listening. Follow us on Instagram at rabbit.holepodcast. The Rabbit Hole is an independent podcast with all research, writing, editing, and producing done by me, Dani Mercy. Special thank you to Zakar Valaha Music.